Hi, hello, and welcome back. Last time I introduced to you the grammar of graphics philosophy, and we ended the lesson on the topic of grammatical elements or layers of a graph. In this lesson, we will get a lot more close and personal with the layers and see all of them in action. The way grammar of graphics is introduced to R is through the ggplot2 package written by Hadley Wickham. Wickham is a prolific R developer, and you may recall me mentioning him in the dplyr lessons. He developed that too. He is kind of the equivalent of a rock star for the statistical community, and I am a huge fan. That said, I am happy to be teaching you ggplot2. Okay, let's get to it. As you recall, there are 7 layers to a graph: data, aesthetics, geometries, facets, stats, coordinates, and themes. The first 3 are mandatory and must be there in order to create a graph. The rest are optional, but we'll see how to use each one as we go along anyway. They do help make graphs robust and meaning-heavy. So, the first layer is data. I will use the data from the Corruption Perception Index and the Human Development Index I have compiled into a CSV for this lesson. It's available in the resources, but since data visualizations has a creative component as well, you can try and play around with other datasets while I work with this one. It's all up to you. Okay, so one of the greatest things about ggplot2 is that the way it's set up to work makes it abundantly clear there are different layers to a graph, and you can tweak and adjust each one individually. For example, I can assign my data to a variable called sc for a scatterplot, because that's what we'll be creating. Notice that nothing is coming up on the plots tab when I print sc. That's because we need all 3 initial layers to produce a graph, remember? Okay, next come aesthetics. Aesthetics is the layer where we define the aesthetic mappings. Since we're creating a scatterplot, we will be mapping the country's HDI scores for 2015 on the y-axis and their CPI scores on the x-axis. The aesthetics call goes into the initial ggplot command too. And I want you to notice that there is still no graph showing. Third comes the geometry layer. This is where we decide the shape we want our data points to take. I'm making a scatter plot, so I can just take this sc object that now stores the ggplot call and add to it the geometry layer. This is the simplest way to create a scatterplot. There are tons of other geoms you can use, by the way. In fact, if you haven't still been introduced to the ggplot2 cheat sheet available for download from RStudio, please make your acquaintance. All you have to do is Google ggplot2 cheat sheet, and it will likely be the first result that pops up. And I have included a link in the resources if you feel like getting it from there. So, now that we have added the geom layer, we have an image. It's a super simple plot, but we can start building up on it with the optional layers: facets, stats, and coordinates. We will add themes last because they have nothing to do with the data and concern exclusively the appearance of our plot. Facets is where we can decide whether we want to break up our plot into subplots based on a discrete variable. Whether we can use facets depends on whether we have such a variable in our dataset, of course. In this case, we are in luck. Region is a discrete variable. The abbreviations here stand for the geopolitical regions the countries in our dataset belong to: the Americas, Asia Pacific, Eastern and Central Europe, Middle East and North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Western Europe. That said, let's split our data plot according to these regions. Sweet! Now we have 6 plots on our canvas separated by region. This makes it a bit easier to spot trends in the data already. Next comes the statistics layer. This layer enables us to do different transformations on our data and summarize it in numerous ways. For now, I will just add a smooth line through my data points, which calculates the smoothed mean of y conditional on x. The gray area around the line is some sort of error measure, but we'll discuss that in more detail in the statistics section. Alright, The sixth layer is the coordinates layer. This is where we can specify the dimensions of the graph, whether we want to zoom into some subset of the data or not. For example, if I only wanted to see countries in the upper quartile of the CPI index, I could define the coordinates as follows. This tells us that most of the countries with the least recorded corruption incidents are from the Western Europe group. Right. Finally, tweaking the theme. R offers a decent number of themes in the ggplot2 package itself, like black and white, minimalist, dark, and so on, but you can also install the gg themes supplementary package and expand your options further. Themes are important because they make the already meaningful graph styled and publication worthy. They also offer something in the way of interpretation ease. For this example, I will just go with a no-nonsense minimal theme. Okay, fantastic. These are the 7 layers of a graph: data, aesthetics, and geometry being compulsory, and facets, stats, coordinates, and themes, which are optional but infinitely useful for building anything other than the most basic level of plot. Next, we will take a closer look at the code to build graphs, beginning with the histogram. But first, we'll quickly check back with the variables and variable types. Thanks for watching, everyone, and see you in the next lesson.